This is the RACER H2O podcast.
It's time to drop that flag!
Go! Come on. Right here, go get him! Cut it tight. Be on the tractor, baby! Bring it home!
And now here's your host.
Rewind battle for the lead, shoulder to shoulder, going into turn one. Rips that boot around!
Jared Rosberg.
All right. What's up, troops? It's your old pal Jared here. Welcome to the RACER H2O podcast. Man, troops, I got to tell you, we got a huge show for you this week. Big guest coming up. Social media lit up last week after last week's podcast. Oh, can't wait to get to it. Let's go ahead and get to the news first.
Stand by for the news.
Beautiful Tavares, Florida was bumping again this past weekend as Surf and Turf Promotions brought round number 2 of the Hydro Turf Florida State Hydrocross Championships back to Lake Dora in Central Florida. Over the 2 days of racing, the youth movement once again in full effect as veteran racers Dustin Farthing, Sam Nemi, and Brian Baldwin, man, they were smiling ear to ear watching their kids rip it up out there on the water. Sammy Nemi podiumed on both days and won Sunday's racing in the Ski GP class. Talon Farthing won both days in the novice sports spec, and Devin Farthing grabbed a win in Sunday's sports spec racing. Brian Baldwin's son Caden won Saturday's Rec Lights races and grabbed second on Sunday behind Mike Lopez. So with so many young second-generation riders coming up and doing so well, fans, I got to tell you, the future of personal watercraft racing seems secure. There was a bunch more racing in Tavares, fans. For a complete list of results from this past weekend's racing in beautiful Tavares, Florida, visit surfandturfpromotions.com. Now some bad but not unexpected news from the PWC ranks. P1 Aquacross announced this past week that this weekend's race at the Hard Rock Cafe in Daytona Beach, Florida has been canceled for 2020, as well as the 2020 championship races in the Bahamas. Like everyone else in racing, the series is putting all of its efforts into building a solid schedule for 2021 that is set to include stops in Florida, Indiana, and the Caribbean before wrapping things up in the Bahamas in November of 2021. For more details about what they've got going on at P1 Aquacross, fans, please visit p1aquax.com. That's p1aquax.com. Man, the hits just keep on coming in tunnel boat racing. Jamie Durand announced her retirement from racing this week, citing, among other things, safety in the sport. The North Augusta, South Carolina driver was the first woman to win a Powerboat Nationals Pro Tunnel 1 feature race. She did it in 2019 in Guntersville, Alabama, and she was set to contend for the championship this year. Now, in addition to being on hand for the tragedy in Springfield, Ohio 2 weekends ago that saw the loss of Tracy Hawkins, Durand's father, Dean, was severely injured and almost lost his life in a horrible accident in Trenton, Michigan in 2019. So you can hardly blame Jamie Durand for making this very, very difficult decision. She says she's had enough and has posted her equipment for sale on social media.
And that was the news.
And speaking of safety in tunnel boats, to say that the RACER H2O private messages on social media lit up after last week's podcast is an understatement. The comments and questions concerning safety in the APBA's premier class of tunnel boats, the Formula One class, came rolling in, and troops, we're taking them right to the top. Chris Fairchild, the president of the American Powerboat Association, joins us on the RACER H2O podcast when we come back in a hair over 15 seconds.
RACERH2O.com is the place to go to find easy-to-use links to our social media. Watch, read, listen to, and enjoy our content on demand for free on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and RACERH2O.com.
This is the RACER H2O podcast.
Fans, welcome back to the podcast. 2 weekends ago, Powerboat Racing lost an icon when Tracy Hawkins died of injuries he sustained in a crash at the APBA's Formula One race at Wake the Lake 4 in Springfield, Ohio. While everyone mourned, the loss of Hawkins brought up some serious questions as many in the tunnel boat racing community began to talk about the incident and safety in the APBA's premier class of tunnel boats. And joining me now, I believe he's on the road. He's a working man during the day, of course. He's the president of the American Powerboat Association. Chris Fairchild joins us now. Chris, thank you, and welcome to the show.
And it's good to be here.
Well, you know, you were in Springfield when the incident happened, so you can answer as both the president as well as a witness or a spectator, whatever you want to call yourself. I'd like to clear some things up if I can about the incident. We weren't there. We didn't have cameras rolling. And if we had, obviously, this wouldn't be part of our television coverage. But please correct me if I'm wrong in what I've been told happened with the incident. The incident in question, what I've heard, started after Fred Durr barrel rolled in a turn. Now, is that correct? I mean, that seems to be
no.
He barrel rolled and then things happened after that. Yes or no?
No, that's incorrect.
Okay.
What happened was Fred started third on the dock. Tracy was fourth. Dylan Anderson was fifth. And I don't know who was on down dock. Mm-hmm. Greg and RJ got through the first turn clean with Fred, Tracy, and Dylan taking up the back of the pack. There were a couple of people down dock of those three that got off pretty good. Naturally, the commitment buoy's halfway to the first turn, and then the squeeze is on. Mm-hmm. While those three were fighting for clear air on the windshield, Tracy and Fred Durr touched, which Fred Durr blew over at that point. Tracy puffed, but he was able to come back down. When Tracy was bringing the boat back down, he kind of came down a little bit on Dylan Anderson, which tipped Tracy's left sponson into the water because Dylan kept the right sponson up, caused Tracy to go into a severe right-hand turn and start barrel rolling where Dylan Anderson, he basically made a right-hand turn in front of Dylan, and Dylan used the bottom of Tracy's boat as a ski jump.
Okay. Well, obviously, a very traumatic accident there. Now, I've heard reports from different people, and again, that's why I'm glad to have you on the phone. People have given me reports, and these were unsolicited, this is what they've told me, that there was a delay from the time the incident began and when the caution flare went up. Was there a delay? Now, I'm not looking to point fingers here, but it leads me to my next question. Was there a delay with the caution flare from when this happened and then the caution going up and everyone coming to a stop?
I guess I can't really answer that because we've been, which I can certainly go back and we can check the drone footage. I know the rescue was moving about the time they saw Fred's decks as Fred went vertical. So I can't imagine that the caution flare wasn't fired right away, but we've got drone footage. Okay. By all means, we can go back and check that.
Well, the reason behind the question is that when you get on these bigger courses like F1 likes to run, especially in a place like Springfield, which is a beautiful location, beautiful lake, big lake, you got lots of water to play with, does it beg the question on a big course like that where pins are so far away from the judges' stand? And again, not accusing anyone of anything. I've covered enough races where it's hard to keep track of what's going on all over the place at all times. But especially on a big track, would it be something to consider that you had maybe corner workers or additional officials out either on the water or along the shore in that corner with a flare gun and the authority to stop a race if they see something? And hey, if you've got flares going left and right, that's all the better. Let the drivers know. But is that something that you might want that you might be willing to consider for the bigger courses.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the problems is, and typically is the case, when we leave the beach to the first turn, it's usually not heading towards the judges' stand. It's usually heading away from it. Right. So even if a flare is shot, the drivers wouldn't be able to see it. So absolutely, that's a good idea. We had officials down at the commitment buoy, and we had officials at the far end watching the start, watching for lane changing. So to put a flare gun in their hands wouldn't be difficult.
Good. Okay, well, that's always trying to come up with ideas, and I'm glad that that's something that could be looked at. Now, another thing, and this is one that's really made social media vibrate big time after the event and all week. Dylan Anderson's boat was a composite hull, and when it made contact with Hawkins' wood boat, Hawkins' boat really didn't stand a chance. Now, obviously, when you make a right turn right in front of someone, it's going to be horrible anyhow. But many on social media have called for the separation of the two hulls. In fact, some have called for banning one or the other in Formula One. Your thoughts on this?
We've been running wood boats in Formula One for so long it isn't funny, and we've been running them against composite boats. I haven't heard that, but as far as I'm concerned, that's kind of a silly idea. A wood boat can hit every bit as hard as a composite boat because I've been hit by both. Tracy's boat didn't necessarily sustain damage from Dylan's hit. Tracy's cell was intact. Nobody ever made contact with his capsule. So do I have an issue with a composite boat versus a wood boat? Man, we've been only doing that for 20 years. Grand Prix are a composite boat. The first DAC showed up here in about 99. That's a composite boat against wood boats. Seabolds made glass boats. The Lee Crafts were glass boats. So to say we need a separation between the two or to ban one or the other is foolish. We're not going to do that.
When I think about Formula One, I think about cutting-edge technology, new design. But in the U.S., let's face it, the reality is that most of the hulls that are racing in the APBA's Formula One class are old wooden boats. Yes, there are some new composite hulls, but the vast majority are older, outdated technology. What is the APBA prepared to do to help modernize the F1 fleet as we move into 2021?
As we continue to race the F1 fleet, the older hulls go away by attrition. And more teams are buying new hulls. At the moment, the economic status of the F1 fleet here in the U.S. is not what the European F1 fleet would be. So we have to take care of our racers as well as take care of safety. The hull played no part in Tracy's incident. We don't have a complete autopsy report, but yes, a modern boat may have fared better, but I don't know that because Tracy's boat basically slapped on the canopy. And I've seen some of the modern boat canopies, and we don't really see too many people slap right on the canopy. And I think that canopy might have been an issue, but I don't know if a modern boat would have fared any better. And again, everything is a guess until we have a report.
I understand. And I'm speaking with Chris Fairchild, president of the APBA. Now, do you think, talking about the wooden hulls, now I know that there are some out there that have had modifications done over the years. Safety's been kept up with them. They are in par with the composite hulls. But do you think there's a chance that some of the older wooden hulls might be relegated to Formula 2 or the SST 120 class while F1 maybe strengthens their safety rules or adds to the requirements on the wooden hulls to make them a little bit more in line with the composite hulls? Extra safety measures?
Well, the cockpits are what we always concentrated on, and currently in the States, we're looking for 3,000 Newton-meter cockpits or stronger. Yes, the new Hoffman is built with a crash box, The new Composite craft has got a crash box. So they are gaining ground in that direction, and they're both selling new boats. Do I think that is something that the APBA is going to mandate? I know that safety is looking into those options, but crash boxes would not have done anything in this accident. They wouldn't help in any way because nobody made contact with the capsule. Mm-hmm. Do I have an issue with a 3,000 Newton meter cell? You are talking to somebody, one of the few that's actually been fully T-boned. Mm-hmm. And did my pew capsule break apart? Yep. But I sure walked away from it.
Right.
So I'm not a big proponent of obsolete technology itself. The newer boats are more competitive. They're faster, they're lighter, and they're stronger. And our teams are going to naturally migrate to them. The old wood boats get hard to fix. People get tired of fixing them. So Composite's what's coming down the track.
Right.
But there are still boat builders who are building capsules and putting wood boats around them. I really don't have a problem with that at this point.
Over 20 years ago, racing lost an icon when NASCAR's Dale Earnhardt was killed in a crash at Daytona International Speedway. His death ushered in a new era for safety in stock car racing. Stock cars got safer with new requirements in design. The Hans device, which nobody had ever heard of before that happened, became mandatory in NASCAR and now commonplace in other types of racing to include powerboat racing. What do you think the APBA can do on the pre-race safety inspection and to help? Are new rules coming? Is a safety inspector going to be added to the required roster of officials at sanctioned races? What sort of things do you see? I know this is all still very fresh, but as president, what's on your mind right now? What are you thinking can be done? You know, we got plenty of time in 2021, Chris. Nothing's going on right now. But
right.
what do you think from the sanctioning body standpoint can be done? So especially at the Formula One level where they're racing at such extreme speeds, so we don't see this happen again, or we lessen the case or chance of this happen again.
And this is one of those fluke freak accidents that we haven't seen happen before. So to try to eliminate any fluke one-of-a-kind accident is very difficult. We can make it so safe. Racing is inherently dangerous, and we all manage our risk. I do like the idea of a head and neck restraint. I do personally run one. I do like the idea of some type of air in the cockpit. I do personally run a system. And some of that stuff has been recommended, and I'm kind of okay with seeing that no longer being recommended. But in Tracy's incident, I'm not sure either of those would have helped because it is such a fluke. Yeah, there were 3 boats involved, but there were really only 2 boats involved in Tracy's in the final accident, boat-on-boat contact, because Fred and Tracy simply touched, which was enough to blow Fred over. So did Fred sustain damage? Yeah, but he didn't do anything other than touch Tracy. So when we talk about safety and where APBA should go, APBA has been looking into mandating head and neck restraints. APBA is looking into mandating air of some sort. We're staying up on top of seatbelts. We are trying to go along. Did NASCAR usher in a new era of safety? They sure did. Does APBA's drivers have the same budget as NASCAR? Not the last time I checked. So we have to be conscious of what our racers. So we have to be conscious of what our members want, because again, APBA is a membership-driven organization. NASCAR is not.
Right. Well, speaking of your members, we have, like I said before, we have time with the COVID-19 shutting things down for 2021. Everybody can work on their boats and they can do a lot of things. What do you think that owners, teams, drivers can work on now in light of all this to help make their watercraft safer? Not just the tunnel boat guys, but you're president of the entire APBA. Hydroplanes, the inboards, all those guys, what can people be looking at now to make themselves safer on the water? Understanding that, hey, like John Force said, if you don't want to get hurt, don't get in. But still, we want to keep it safe for everybody.
No truer statement was said.
Right. But I mean,
and I would agree.
What do you
Some
think?
of the things that I noticed, as a driver, as a crash test dummy, right? I've jumped in a whole lot of different people's boats, and I do a whole lot of silly things that most normal people probably would not. I fold my body up to fit into boats because I'm one of the tallest drivers on the series, so I can't just simply jump in somebody else's boat. But some of the things that I noticed are make sure the seatbelts grab your body properly. More times than not, you'll find out that the shoulder anchor points are above the driver's shoulder. Now, we've been discussing 2 inches versus 4 inches of helmet clearance. None of that matters if your seatbelts aren't pulling you down into your boat. If your seatbelt's not above your shoulders, you get to go up however long it takes for your shoulders to get tight in those belts. You know, the creature comforts are the things that a lot of drivers ignore. Stray wires, room for your legs to flop around. The G-forces in an accident are pretty tremendous. And the better your boat fits you, which is in totality, the seats, the padding around your head, the clearance above your head, the way your seat belts fit you, where your steering wheel sits, the better that is designed for you, the better you're going to survive a crash. Well, and that's the biggest thing I can say for a driver to look at. Well, besides the typical nuts and bolts and making sure your steering hardware is in good shape and things like that.
Right. Well, like I said, everybody has plenty of time right now that they could be out in the garage and getting all this, looking at that. They have a little bit more time to look at that. If they need to get their belts adjusted, if they need to get new belts, if they need to get a new helmet, all that sort of stuff, now's the time. With this break, use the time wisely. It's don't just park it and take the engine off of it, but use the time wisely. Now, as the president of the APBA, right here on RACER H2O podcast, is there anything you would like to say to all of your constituents on the matter of safety, whether it's a tunnel boat or any other watercraft under the APBA umbrella? I'll give you the floor. What would you like to say to your constituents now?
I'd just like to say check your safety gear, check the way you fit in your cockpit. Don't go buy a $150 helmet. Remember, that's your brain in that bucket. Spend a little more money on your safety. Spend a little more money on your gear and use it correctly, because that's the best way you can ensure yourself for a long-lasting racing career.
Well, Chris, we certainly appreciate you taking the time. I know it's late for you out there. It's late for us here. We're doing this in the evening. And we hope to have you back on here to check in on seeing how things are going on the safety end. I mean, this is all inherently dangerous for everyone, but anytime we lose someone, anyone, especially someone like Tracy Hawkins, we have to start asking questions and we have to make things better, because even though it was a fluke accident, if there's an opportunity to talk about safety, I think you would agree that we need to talk about it and try to get things shorn up as best as possible.
And I can tell you that we are doing a thorough investigation. I was on site. I helped start and I helped promote. We are doing a very thorough investigation. We've got video from the boat ramp. We've got video from above with a drone. We've got video from the shore. We've taken pictures of all 3 boats in question. We've got pictures of safety gear. We have statements from all the drivers. We have statements from the rescue. We are doing a very thorough investigation on this one because it's Tracy. So the last piece that we're missing from this incident will be a in-depth coroner's report, which they tell us takes 6 to 8 weeks. We have preliminaries, but the preliminaries are only enough to make an educated guess. They don't really tell me what I want to know and what I want to see. So I don't know how we've investigated these incidences in the past, but because I was there and because several other APBA people were there, we were able to get a much more in-depth accounting of the situation with photographs and everything else.
Well, we're glad to hear about the very thorough investigation being done. We hope things are learned from this and lessons are learned and things are applied, so we don't have to go through this again. But Chris Fairchild, we again appreciate you taking the time, and good luck with everything. Enjoy your COVID break, my friend. We all are we're all in this together, doing what we can during the they say there's never an off season. Well, I'm sorry, brother. This is indeed the off season because there ain't nothing going on right now.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't feel like it to me. It seems like I've got a new fire to put out every day. One of the with the results of Springfield, it's kind of overshadowed the fact that was a very successful event. We proved that we could have spectators along with racers in a COVID environment. We proved we could sell tickets and have the public watch us, which was one of the things that Dana Potts and I set out to do with that event, was we wanted to see if we could get it done. The health department in Springfield was extremely happy with us. We were able to have camping. We were able to have spectators. We had tailgate spots, and everybody was satisfied. So I wouldn't say that this is the off season for us. We're going full steam ahead for 2021. And I'm hoping that a lot of other people go full steam ahead for 2021. COVID's still with us, but we'll see what the future brings. I'm still always hopeful.
Right. Well, I mean, we're working towards 2021 ourselves. We already have some races on our calendar, and we can't wait to get our cameras back out there along the water and make some people famous. We wish we could have been at Springfield. That's a fantastic venue. We spoke with Dana Potts before the event. We spoke with RJ West after the event. It seemed like everything went really well, and you guys have something really special there. It's a very unique venue and one that I'm sure we're going to see a lot of racing on, and we can't wait to get our cameras there. But, Chris, we're going to let you go. Once again, sir, we appreciate your time. Our guest has been Chris Fairchild, president of the APBA. Chris, thank you for your time. Best of luck with everything this year.
Thank you for your time, Jared, and everybody keep your race boats running and get back out there and play.
Stick around, fans. We're going to wrap things up on the podcast, and we come back in a little over 15 seconds.
Get up-to-the-minute watercraft racing news and fantastic bonus content by joining RACER H2O on social media.
Links to our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube pages are easy to find at racerh2o.com.
This is the RACER H2O podcast.
All right, troops, welcome back to the podcast. I'm going to try to be a little brief here with the wrap-up. This is a pretty long podcast, but we had a great conversation with the APBA president, Chris Fairchild, and once again, we appreciate him taking time out of his very busy day. It was late at night when we were working on that interview. Like everyone else, he's got a day job, and Chris Fairchild was very gracious with his time, and we thank him for his comments. Now, two things I'd like to leave you with, fans. It worked pretty well at the last podcast. It left you with something, and you guys lit it up on Facebook and other social media. I appreciate it. Appreciate your input. Two things. First thing is a nugget, or let's call it a discussion point for all of you on social media. Let's talk about it. Let's say, should the rules be left alone and let safety up to the individual drivers and teams based on current guidelines? Or do you think current events warrant stringent changes? Something as crazy as eliminating wooden boats from Formula One, not allowing, as Chris said, attrition to take place. They've gradually worked their way out because, let's face it, they're not working themselves out very quickly. There's still a large number of them out there competing with the composite hulls. Should we allow them to be there, or should we say old boats go to Formula 2 or they go out to pasture? It should not be allowed in F1. Or should we just keep it the way it is and maybe patrol safety a little bit more? Discuss amongst yourselves, your fellow followers on the RACER H2O social media. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, it's election time here in the United States. If you haven't turned on any type of media and been blasted with ads for the left or right, I envy you because they're all over the place here in Pennsylvania. But one thing that Chris Fairchild brought up in his interview that it stood out to me, we were talking about NASCAR and the changes that NASCAR made. The APBA is different than NASCAR in that, as he said, The APBA is membership driven. What that means is, fans, if you're paying dues to have that APBA card, you are a card carrying member, you have a say in what happens. Orlando, Florida, January 27th through 30th, 2021. The APBA National Convention is, I'm not going to say 10, it's still scheduled, but let's face it, travel restrictions. We don't know where COVID-19 is going to be in 2021. I'm praying that it's gone, but, whatever. But it's your opportunity to go as a member, have your voice be heard. You can vote on rules. If it's a situation where you are not, as an individual, able to vote on a decision, vote for people who are going to make that decision, who share your ideas. And if no one shares your ideas, guess what? Why don't you run for the position? Everybody likes to get on social media. Yeah, it's entertaining, but it changes nothing. It might make you feel better. You post that post up there, yeah, I'll show them, or you respond to somebody's post with whether it's well thought out or whether it's ignorant, it doesn't matter. It's just a post on social media. It doesn't change anything. It might make you feel better, but that's it. It certainly gives media people like me fuel for the fire for the podcast. We appreciate that. But it does nothing. One thing you can do in this membership-driven organization: vote. Also, finally, if we could find some kind of silver lining in the loss of Tracy Hawkins, why don't we make it a renewed interest in safety? Take some time this week and the coming months, again, with no racing going on. You have plenty of time to get out there and check this out. Check your safety equipment, your personal equipment. Your helmet especially, like Chris said, if you're using an $150 helmet to protect your brain, come on, man. I mean, put some money into that helmet. Put some money into your safety gear. Check it out. Make sure it's okay. And again, if we can find a silver lining in the absolute tragedy in the loss of Tracy Hawkins, maybe it's that someone takes a look at their gear, finds something wrong with their gear, fixes their gear, and if they go out and they have an incident, they live through it because they took the time to check their gear. So let's stay on top of this, fans. Once again, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, follow. Tell everybody you know to do the same. Tell some people you don't know to do the same. And we'll see you next time. I'm your old pal, Jared. Thanks for listening, fans. This has been the RACER H2O Podcast.